In the early 20th century, when India was in the midst of social, political, and spiritual change, Ramana Maharshi, 1879–1950, emerged as a silent yet radiant teacher of the highest Advaitic truth. Without establishing a formal school or writing elaborate commentaries, he conveyed one of the most profound spiritual practices of all time: self-inquiry. For Ramana, the essential question was not theological speculation or ritual observance, but the direct and urgent inquiry. Who am I? He taught that by tracing the source of the I, beyond thoughts, sensations, and ego, one realizes the self, pure awareness untouched by birth or death. His life became a living testimony to the simplicity and depth of this path. The awakening of Ramana Maharshi. At age 16, Ramana experienced a sudden and life-altering awakening. Struck by the overwhelming fear of death, he lay down and enacted his own passing, observing what truly perished and what remained. He discovered that while the body might die, awareness itself could not be extinguished. This realization of the eternal self transformed him completely. Leaving home soon after, he moved to the sacred mountain of Arunachala, where he remained in silence and meditation for much of his early life. Pilgrims and seekers gradually gathered, drawn by his presence and his simple yet radical teaching, turn inward and ask, "Who am I?" The method of self-inquiry. Unlike many teachers who prescribed rituals, scriptures, or complex disciplines, Ramana offered a practice of startling simplicity. The method of self-inquiry begins by observing the mind and asking, "To whom do these thoughts arise?" The answer is always, "To me." Then one asks, "Who am I?" Instead of trying to intellectually answer the question, the seeker turns attention inward toward the source of the I thought itself. Ramana explained that the ego, the sense of being a separate individual, is only a shadow, constantly shifting. By persistently tracing its root, one uncovers the silent self, pure awareness that was always present, the ego, and the illusion of identity. For Ramana, the ego is the central obstacle to spiritual realization. It is a bundle of thoughts, memories, and identifications that creates the illusion of separateness. He compared it to a phantom thief who takes credit for all actions, though it has no independent existence. When the mind asks, "Who am I?" with sincerity, the ego dissolves like a dream upon waking. What remains is the self, unchanging, infinite consciousness. In this light, human suffering arises from mistaking the false I for reality. Freedom comes not by perfecting the ego, but by seeing through it, realizing that the true self was never bound to begin with. The nature of the self. Ramana described the self as awareness itself, the silent background in which all experiences arise and dissolve. It is not a new state to be achieved, but the ever-present reality that remains when all distractions fall away. He emphasized that the self is beyond body, mind, and even thought. It is the substratum of existence, identical with Brahman, the infinite consciousness of Advaita Vedanta. Just as a screen remains untouched by the movie projected upon it, so the self remains untouched by the play of life. The goal of self-inquiry is not to create the self, but to recognize it as the essence of one's being. Silence as teaching. Though Ramana occasionally gave verbal explanations, he often insisted that his true teaching was silence. Visitors to his ashram would often report that simply sitting in his presence dissolved their mental chatter and opened them to peace. For Ramana, silence was not mere absence of speech, but the direct transmission of pure awareness. He explained that words can only point toward the truth, but silence reveals it. This emphasis reflected his conviction that realization is not an intellectual process, but a shift of consciousness. From outward identification to inward recognition of the self. Self-inquiry in daily life. Ramana was clear that self-inquiry was not limited to monastic seclusion. He taught that one could engage in this practice amidst work, family, and ordinary life. Each time thoughts arise, one can ask, who is experiencing this? By turning inward repeatedly, awareness is gradually stabilized in the self. He compared it to training a restless cow by tying it to a post. The mind, when tethered to the question, who am I, eventually becomes still. In this way, the practice is both immediate and lifelong, leading to deeper peace, clarity, and freedom from the tyranny of egoic reactivity, the realization of pure awareness. The culmination of Ramana's teaching is the direct realization that the self is not separate from Brahman, the infinite consciousness. In this state, known in Advaita as Jivanmukti, liberation while alive, one recognizes that the individual self has no independent reality apart from the whole. The distinction between subject and object, self and world, dissolves into unity. Ramana described this as abiding as the self, resting in the natural state of awareness without effort or doubt. It is a realization not reserved for mystics alone, but available to anyone who sincerely asks and pursues the question, who am I, to its deepest source. The path of direct realization. Ramana Maharshi offered humanity a path of radical simplicity: turn inward, inquire into the source of the I, and discover the eternal self. He showed that the essence of consciousness is not the ego's story, but pure awareness, limitless and free. His life demonstrated that the highest truths need not be clothed in complexity. They can be realized through silence, presence, and inquiry. His teaching endures as a beacon for seekers across traditions. In the depths of the question, who am I, lies the dissolution of illusion and the awakening to the infinite self, which is none other than God consciousness itself. Thanks for watching. If you got to this point, remember to subscribe and share your thoughts. This really supports our mission with this channel and means the world to us. Also, in the description below, you will find curated literature for you to keep expanding your knowledge. We are trying to provide even more value in each video. See you tomorrow in our next deep exploration. Thanks for being here and for allowing this project to keep growing. This audience is truly awesome, and we love to read your comments.